All right, welcome to the Unearthing Autism podcast. I'm Jay Beard.
And I'm Morgan Simrell.
So, what we're doing in this episode is we're going to introduce ourselves, we'll give some of the goals of the podcast, and we're going to tell our stories about how we realized we're autistic. And I know one of my goals is to unmask in front of the camera. I'm hoping that having you in front of me will kind of help me unmask. I have a whole nother YouTube channel, J Beard Music, and everything I do on that YouTube channel is very scripted, every word of it. So, it'll be nice to relax in front of the camera. Me and Morgan cuts my hair. So, whenever you're cutting my hair, we always have great conversations. And So, tell me a little bit about yourself, Morgan.
Well,
what are some of your special interests?
Tell me about yourself is a question that usually makes me really uncomfortable, but the fact that this is about autism takes a lot of the pressure off of it. But I am a hairstylist and I've been doing hair for about 6 years, and I have a son who's a 7-year-old, and I'm a single mom. And, yeah.
Nice.
The basics.
And would you say you have certain deep special interests, or do you feel like you run between a lot of different things?
Yeah, they kind of like, change out over a few years. There'll be something I'm really into a few years and then kind of get into something else. Like when I was a kid, I was really into certain book series for a really long time. So I was really into Percy Jackson book series, and that was a big special interest for me. And that just was turned into a special interest of like mythology in general. And then hair is a special interest that has stuck with me since I went to hair school. Not since I went to hair school, since before that, because I was doing my own hair at home, and that's what made me want to do hair. And I had friends that I did their hair, and they said that they only trusted me to do their hair, and it put a lot of confidence in me that it was something that I was good at. And once I really started learning about it in school and learning all of the science behind everything, then I just wanted to learn everything that I could about it and absorb all of the knowledge and become the best at it.
Nice. And you are great at it. My amazing hair is the example for it. And it's great that you get to use your skills for your work. One thing I probably should mention by now is that me and Morgan are self-diagnosed autistic. And so, have you been diagnosed with ADHD?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with ADHD, ADD when they were still separating them. When I was I want to say it was first or second grade. And my mom had also been diagnosed with ADD when she was young, and they put her on a stimulant pretty young, and she was on it all through her childhood and teenage years, and she was pretty dependent on it, and she didn't want me to be dependent on something like that so young. So they kind of tried a non-stimulant with me, and it didn't do anything at all, so they just stopped and never really tried anything else, or just kind of learned to live with it.
So you have ADHD and autism, and I would say I'm pretty firmly on the autism side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am 28, and my big special interest is music. I play a whole bunch of instruments. I have a whole YouTube channel where I talk about my special interest of Scriabin, and I'm super into music theory as well. So that's a big special interest that takes up a bunch of my life. And I get to do music as a living, teaching music lessons.
But I feel like being autistic, it's hard for me to imagine having any other job as something I have to go and do every single day, unless it's something that's my special interest. Because anytime I've been in any other job, I just could only go a short period of time being able to handle it until I felt like I had to get out and do something else, because it was just draining me to not be doing something that I was interested in every day. So I think it's really good for us.
Yeah.
Being in jobs that are special interest for us.
Yeah, the whole 8 hours a day thing can be way too much for autistics in a job that they don't like. So yeah, I'm super grateful to be able to do what I love. And yeah, some of my other special interests include history, geopolitics. I've been really into economics lately, and into philosophy, and of course psychology. I did a 1-year master's in psychology, and now It really kind of helped frame my understanding of neurodivergence. And so yeah, I'm glad I studied psychology. It was a good kind of preamble to realizing I'm autistic. So yes, so some of the goals of the podcast, I just wanted to say, in a broad sense, is to raise awareness about autism. And so a lot of why I'm passionate about this topic is because there's so much misunderstanding and there's so much stigma. It's there, and like I'll admit, I used to have the ugly conception of autism myself. And so I'm really hoping by just talking about this and people seeing us that can kind of help the understanding with everybody.
Yeah, I always had like a very specific image in my head of autism, of like what's shown to us mostly in media, being like mostly boys with autism and mostly like either completely nonverbal or like really stereotypically obsessed with trains and things like that are just like very in your face, but not like there's such a like broad spectrum where it's like there's so many different special interests you can have. There's so many different sensory issues that you can have that aren't always talked about, that people don't understand that people have, and a lot of masking. So
yeah, and the other broad goal of the podcast is to share some coping strategies, some things we've learned through life to help people live life as autistic, how to talk about this with family members, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, so tell me, Morgan, how did you realize that you're autistic?
Well, since I was a kid, I just knew like that there was something weird about me, but in my mind it was just like weird, just a weirdness, weird things I couldn't stop doing. I would be like way more obsessed with things than other kids, and I could like after a while start to realize that I would be annoying people by talking to them so much about the thing that I wanted to talk about. Like once they said like, okay, let's talk about something else now, or something, where I just like wouldn't be catching on to things. And a lot of it, the biggest things were probably like stims that I had and sensory issues that I had growing up that I just thought were weird. And so I would just really work on hiding them. And it made me feel isolated from a lot of the other kids at school. And it made it to where I kind of wasn't normal enough to fit in with like the normal kids, but then the autistic kids, like the other kids that I look back now and think they were probably autistic too, I saw things in them that I hated about myself, and so I would not really socialize with them either because I was embarrassed of being looked at as like weird, like people looked at them like they were weird. And so I just was kind of like in this category by myself all the time. And I would like I was really shy, so there would always be like some kids from each group or clique that would talk to me and would be nice to me, and they would be my friend. Like whichever people were nice to me were my friends in my mind. And so it was just always like a situation like that through childhood and teenage years. And then it was really TikTok that made me start thinking about autism differently, where I started seeing autism presented in different ways. I started seeing a lot more girls who were autistic and sharing things that they'd struggled with growing up and sensory issues that they had and stims that they had. And I started really realizing what stims were and what sensory issues were, and being able to put all these things that I did when I was a kid into these categories that fit with other people, and saw like, and really felt for the first time, like really identifying with something that felt like me inside, and just feeling like, wow, there's other people that are going through the exact same thing as me. I thought that I was the only one, and I thought that I was just, there was something wrong with me. And then I realized how there's so many other people going through the same thing, and they're all amazing, awesome people. So what would I have to be embarrassed about? And so it just made me start researching it more and more, and start taking tests online, and just like really obsessing over it. It became a special interest. So every single day I was looking stuff up about it. I was joining Facebook groups where people were asking questions about it, and I was asking questions about it, and just really relating to people so much, like more than I'd ever related to anybody before. And it felt like I was a part of something that I didn't know I could be, like so much a part of something like that.
Yes, and it's amazing how helpful it is to see other autistic people. Like, you have to witness it yourself, because you have this image in your head that these are like super disabled people. But in fact, you see them on something like TikTok or YouTube. YouTube was really helpful for me. And then you're like, oh, this person's like me.
Yeah.
Like they're not as strange as the image of the stigma I had of autism before. And so that's why I think this is helpful that people can see us through video and everything. And I think people sometimes act like it's a bad thing that people are diagnosing themselves based on TikTok, but actually I think it's a really good thing. I think it's a huge revolution that we can.
It's enough to spark to get your thinking going into that direction. Not like I saw a TikTok and now I know that I'm autistic. It's like, that one TikTok kind of made me start thinking, and then I started researching more, so the algorithm shows me more of it. Exactly. And then the more you see, the more you're like, and then you start going to other areas to research. But the TikToks are just like put in front of you without you searching for it, where it kind of forces you into thinking about it and like giving that thought a chance.
Yes. So I know several self-diagnosed autistic people who have found out through TikTok. And what I've heard is that apparently TikTok can basically tell that you're autistic based on the algorithm, basically. That, they see me looking up economics and history and Rubik's Cubes and all this super nerdy stuff and music theory. And they're like, oh, yeah, we've had somebody just like that. And they looked into autism because they knew they were autistic. And so basically the algorithm is helping all these autistic people realize they're autistic by showing them the videos that they need to see.
Because it's kind of like, if you like this, then you'll also like this.
Yeah. It's amazing that the algorithm would help diagnose people. And so tell me, afterwards you said that you looked into your family background.
Yeah, so then the first person that I talked to about it at all was my mom. And I asked her about if she thought that there were any signs of autism when I was growing up, and I sent her like some like lists of things, and there were a lot of things that I did growing up that my mom just kind of thought were normal because she did them too, and my mom now believes that she's autistic. And so there were a lot of like stims that I did, and my mom always stimmed too, and so she just thought like stims were something everybody did. And I don't know. So my mom is still kind of undecided, but she's kind of going on that journey herself now. But when I told her, I said, please don't tell my dad, because I think that he'll make fun of me if you say anything to him about it. And she was like, he's not going to make fun of you, because I already told him, because your dad was diagnosed with autism when he was 12. And it was just something that like never got brought up when I was a kid. My dad never ever talks about autism, but when I look at him as a person, I completely see it. And I think that's just also the kind of person that he is, where he doesn't feel like he needs to, I don't know, pay it too much attention. He just does what he wants to do. And he's definitely struggled a lot in life, but I think that it's definitely obvious that he's autistic, and him being autistic made me give it more thought to my life, to gave it more like, maybe I should look more into it.
Yeah.
If he is, then the chances are greater that I am, so maybe I should research it some more. And yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be a crazy bombshell that your dad was literally diagnosed with it.
Yeah.
And you didn't know.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Because
Yeah.
it's not something we ever talked about, like, when I was growing up. And my little brother I've always, since I learned about, like, I remember the first time learning about, like, the term Asperger's when I was a kid. And it was, like, with all of the, like, the symptoms or the traits that are listed for Asperger's, my brother really falls into more of, like, a stereotypical category where it's much more obvious with him. And so when I first learned that term, I was like, my brother. Like, I immediately had a picture of my brother in my mind. And so I always knew that he was, but his dad, which was my stepdad, was very like, there's nothing wrong with me or my family, and my kid is going to be like the sports superstar just like I was, and there's nothing wrong with him. And he wouldn't even ever entertain the idea of going to get him checked. And so they just didn't. And my brother has never been diagnosed either, but he's definitely more obvious. But yeah, so my little brother definitely.
Yeah, it's amazing how if we didn't have so much toxicity around this topic of mental health, it would have been obvious to us, right? Like
the fact that if you have any mental health issues or whatever it is, that it's something's wrong with you.
Yeah. There's that stigma to it, and so it makes people just not want to talk about it. Like, your dad just never brought it up, and had he brought it up and had he learned about it, he could have said, "Oh, my kids are probably going to be autistic. Let me introduce that to them in the right way." And instead, it's kind of absurd that we. So I realized when I was 28. How old were you when you realized? I'm 28 right now, by the way.
25.
And how old are you now?
26.
Yeah. Yeah, so I feel like this is going to be the generation where people realize they're autistic. Because in the generations previous, there wasn't so much of an understanding of autism. In fact, like, the first scientists got wind of it in, like, the 40s. So it's super new. There's been changes, big understanding changes in the past 10 years. And now we have the TikTok revolution. So it feels like all of humanity hasn't had a term for this, hasn't classified it. People didn't know that they were in the past. And now suddenly people are going to be able to wake up to it and realize, and hopefully not be so weird about it. Yeah. One thing I want to briefly say is that I think we should totally cuss on here. So if you don't like cussing, go to a different podcast. But yeah. So my story for realizing I'm autistic is you, Morgan. It all starts with Morgan. She picked me up from the airport.
And I was going through the time where I was really, like, it was really becoming a special interest for me, and I was learning everything about it, and I was info dumping on everybody. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to pick my friend up from the airport. I'm going to info dump on him about autism.
Yeah, that's what it was like. And I had just had a really cool trip in the UK. And at first, honestly, I was almost kind of annoyed that you were talking to me so much about autism, because I wanted to tell you about my trip, and she was just so mind blown that she realized she was autistic. But I was surprised because I would have had no clue that you were autistic. I was like, oh, you seem normal. You just seem really ADHD. Like, I wouldn't have guessed autism. That's a totally different thing in my mind. and then you started going over. You started listening to some of your traits, and I think the big one that clicked is the stimming that you had mentioned. So I stim a bunch. In fact, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you've seen my hands tapping, and so my whole life I've tapped a whole bunch, and it's gotten me in trouble in school. It annoys my mom a whole bunch, and I never thought I was autistic. I never thought I was very different. I got a master's in psychology and thought, man, it must be something to be neurodivergent. So I never suspected myself, but I thought I was just really into drums. I thought I was just a very musical person, and and I did notice I had very different interests than other people, but I just thought I was smarter than other people. I was like, oh man, sucks for them that they can't be so into music theory. You know, I'm so nerdy about it. It must just be that I'm smart. So yeah, basically, that day in the car, you had told me about you being autistic. And I think the other thing you said that really caught my attention was the sensory sensitivities to light and sound, because I had just been having big problems with my roommates where actually these lights here get really bright, and I would always tell them, I fucking hate those lights. Don't hit on those lights. And I have big problems with hearing, where I would just tell my roommates, like, you can't be blaring music in the living room because I can't think when there's super intrusive sounds. So yeah, basically you really got me thinking in that first interaction, and I started looking it up. It was kind of a slow process, you know. It was like a month and a half of me deliberating about it, learning more and more about it. And then, yeah, just some uncanny things were there, like me tiptoe walking, and and me having. I think one of the most helpful traits for realizing you're autistic is if you're weird with food. Are you weird with food?
Yeah, like I never liked when my foods were touching. If any food was touching a different
Same.
food, then I wouldn't eat that part. And so I had a lot of the plates that separate everything for you when I was a kid, and I still buy those for myself now. And also sensory seeking with food, because I've always been really sensory seeking. I've always loved really sour foods and really spicy foods.
Yes, I'm into the spicy.
And so I've had certain meals that I would eat all the time growing up, and it would be like I didn't want to eat anything else except for that one thing, and I would just go nauseous until I could eat that one thing. And it was mostly McDonald's chicken nuggets with buffalo and ranch, and I have like a very specific, like, ritualistic way of setting up the buffalo and the ranch, and I dip in the buffalo and then I dip in the ranch, because the buffalo is the sensory that I'm seeking, but then it's too spicy and I don't like for it to make me hot and sweaty, so I need the ranch to cool it off. And it's this whole, like, it has to be exactly this way thing that I've eaten that same exact meal like all through my life since I started eating buffalo sauce, because I didn't when I was like in elementary school, but middle school I started with that meal, and I've eaten it like probably at least once a week ever since I was in middle school. So yeah.
Yes, and I still eat the same kind of stuff, and now I've upgraded to chicken sandwiches, but it's like my food palette is still so simple, but it felt so good.
Do you get like hyperfixation meals where for like a month you'll only eat basically the same thing every single day, and then until you just are like, okay, I've eaten this every day, now I can't eat it anymore, and then you gotta like switch and find something else to replace it with?
Sometimes I'll wear something out for like a month, but really it's pretty long term for me. Like, I mean, still to this day, like, basically I eat maybe 3 or 4 different, dinner time sort of meals, and I'm kind of doubling down on it. So I used to have kind of some shame around the whole eating thing. People would tell me I'm spoiled, that I'm picky, that I should just, eat the things that other people eat and not be so picky. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I developed some shame around it, and so it felt so good to realize, oh, this is just a sensory sensitivity there's a lot of other people that have this, and it's okay to eat the same stuff.
Yeah, you don't have to force yourself to eating other things. Because I used to really try for, like, I would be like, there's something wrong with me. Like, I can't eat anything else. Like, I buy these groceries and then they go to waste because I look in the fridge and I'm like, I can't eat any of this. And then I go and I go get a safe food from a fast food place or a Wawa or something. And it like turns into me wasting a lot of money because I'm trying to do better. But then I really don't need to because I can just get things from the grocery store that are maybe things that only children would eat, but who cares because I'm going to eat it and I have sustenance and I'm happy.
Yes.
So,
yeah, no point buying foods you're not going to get, because I'll do that too. You have a good idea of eating this healthy thing in the future, but...
kind of setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, for wasting the money. You might as well just eat things you like. And I have one meal that is quite healthy. So I have developed in my I used to eat no vegetables, but now I have this vegetable chicken stir fry that I make, and it is healthy. It has all my vegetables in it. And so I'm even hoping to maybe get on a routine of eating that like every day.
Yeah.
Because some of the autistic YouTubers, Autism on the Inside, he's my favorite one that really helped me realize the most. And he eats the same meal every day, and I'm like, man, maybe I should do
Why
that.
not?
Yes.
Especially if you find a meal that's healthy that you can eat every day and you want to eat every day, like why not? That makes it easier. So many people stress out every day because they don't know what to get to cook for dinner every night. They're like, I can't eat the same thing every single day. Well, yes, you can.
Yes, I enjoy it. Cool. So that's about all the things. Yeah, we're hoping to raise awareness about autism and share our strategies. And I'm also hoping to get some other friends to talk on here. Me and Morgan are in a friend group of a lot of neurodivergent folks and a lot of autistic, a lot of ADHD folks. A lot of us are musicians. And so, yeah, I hope to be able to invite other people and have people share their experiences of being autistic. Thanks for doing this with me, Morgan. Good stuff.